Welcome to Happiness on Tap, where we fill your cup with inspiration, resilience, and real life tools to create your best life. I'm your host, Leann Herron, and today we're diving into a topic that touches every woman's heart: love. But not the kind of love that comes from chasing, fixing, or settling. We're talking about the kind that naturally grows when you rediscover who you really are. My guest today is Ken Bechtel, bestseller author of The Blooming Effect and the relationship mentor who spent over 25 years helping women attract love by becoming their most authentic, radiant selves. Ken's approach flips the traditional dating advice on its head. Instead of teaching women how to find the guy, he helps them bloom so the right love finds them. Through his powerful work and his book, The Blooming Effect, Ken guides women to release self doubt, embrace their worth, and bloom into the most authentic, magnetic version of themselves. We're going to talk about what it really means to bloom, the surprising myths that keep smart, successful women stuck, and how to finally attract a partner who truly sees, values, and grows with you. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Leann. Great to be here.
I am so excited for this conversation because throughout life, I have experienced many forms of finding love. And so I'm excited for what you have put together to teach women how, when we are our best selves, that's when the right love truly finds us. So let's get started. You say that love doesn't come from chasing it. It comes from blooming. That's such a powerful twist. Can you explain what that means in practical, real world terms for a woman who has tried and is tired of trying to find love?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we do have all this idea out there culturally, like you got to go find love, you got to do all the work, you got to go chase it down. And the reality is that's not really true. I mean, you could take that approach, right? And probably most of our listeners have at some point taken that approach. But the reality is, if you think of when I talk about blooming, I use the example of a rose. So you think about what you could use any flower, but let's just use a rose. When a rose blooms, it doesn't bloom because it is trying to be what you want. It doesn't go, oh, here comes Leann. I better bloom like she wants. It just blooms because that's who it is. Now, some people will be drawn to it and be like, oh, nice rose. But they keep moving, right? They're not like stopped in their tracks. Somebody else will be like, yeah, I don't really like roses. But the people we want are the ones that go, look at that magnificent rose. Look at how beautiful it's blooming. I want to help it maintain that. I want to help it keep blooming. That's your people. And they're out there. But by definition, finding the right person for you is a minority, right? Most people aren't the right person for you. So if we sit there and keep trying to be what we think most people will like, well, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. It's interesting because we do have all this idea out there culturally, like you got to go find love, you got to do all the work, you got to go chase it down. And the reality is that's not really true. I mean, you could take that approach, right? And probably most of our listeners have at some point taken that approach. But the reality is, if you think of when I talk about blooming, I use the example of a rose. So you think about what you could use any flower, but let's just use a rose. When a rose blooms, it doesn't bloom because it is trying to be what you want. It doesn't go, oh, here comes Leann. I better bloom like she wants. It just blooms because that's who it is. Now, some people will be drawn to it and be like, oh, nice rose. But they keep moving, right? They're not like stopped in their tracks. Somebody else will be like, yeah, I don't really like roses. But the people we want are the ones that go, look at that magnificent rose. Look at how beautiful it's blooming. I want to help it maintain that. I want to help it keep blooming. That's your people. And they're out there. But by definition, finding the right person for you is a minority, right? Most people aren't the right person for you. So if we sit there and keep trying to be what we think most people will like, well, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, that is so true. And once I gave myself time after coming out of a 20-year marriage to truly fall in love with myself, that was when I bloomed and the right person found me. So that's why I'm so excited for this conversation because I truly got to experience that for myself. So, one of the big ideas in your book is that women often think avoiding what they don't want will lead them to what they do want. But you say that's a myth. Why doesn't that work? And what should women focus on instead?
Yeah. And, this is such a common idea that, oh, well, I just need to watch out for those traits I don't like, right? I mean, you can ask your friend, what are you looking for? And they'll tell you all the things they don't want. Well, I don't want a guy who's emotionally unavailable. I don't want a guy who's just focused on himself. I don't want a guy who, and they just keep listing off all the things they don't want. But think of it this way. Imagine you go to a restaurant, the waiter comes by and asks you what you'd like for dinner, and you tell him everything you don't want to eat. You would never do that because that's the longest possible route to getting what you want. And yet we do this all the time in the dating world. Most of the women I talk to, I'll ask them, well, what are you looking for? Here comes the list of what they don't want. We know you don't want that, but that doesn't get you any closer to what you do want because there's way more things you don't want than the ones that you do want. You'd be talking forever if you had to name everything you don't want to get to what you do want. So what we want to do is flip that and go, even when you hear yourself saying, oh, I don't want, wait a minute, what do I want instead? What would I replace the don't want with? That's what we're moving towards. So then when we focus there, we actually tap into a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And this is designed to filter out anything that isn't what we're focused on. So it brings the thing you're focused on front and center, and everything else falls to the wayside. So if you're focused on what you don't want, your reticular activating system will bring the thing you don't want in front of your face over and over and over again. And you'll start to think that's all there is. I had a woman I was working with in San Diego, and she said, Ken, I've raised a family. I'm not interested in raising more children. So I really don't want to meet a guy who's got younger kids. And she said, but every man I meet has younger children. And she goes, the weird part is all my girlfriends, they never meet guys with younger kids. How can this be? Because she was focused on what she didn't want. So she kept seeing those people so that she could avoid them. So we have to take control of that, right? Because our reticular activating system is working anytime it wants. All day, every day, it's working. So we got to be careful about what we're feeding it. Are we telling it, look for what I don't want or look for what I do want? And if you're wondering, do you really have a reticular activating system? I can prove it to you. Because I guarantee the last time you went to buy a new car, whatever you picked, let's say it was a red Honda, the next day when you got on the road, you swear there were more red Hondas than you'd ever seen in your life. That's your reticular activating system. It said, oh, you're focused on red Hondas? Here they are. Now, there weren't any more red Hondas out there that day, but you notice them because this is what your reticular activating system does for you. So we all have it. It happens every day, 24/7. We need to take control of what we're feeding it. And if you feed it what you don't want, that's what you're going to see more of.
And that is a perfect example. I guarantee that every listener is going to resonate with that because it happens to all of us. And it is something that I really found that held true for me when I was ready to start considering dating again. But I gave myself almost 3 years of just focusing on myself first for the first time in my entire life. I had my daughter at 17. So my life went from being a child to being adult responsible for somebody else. And then I got married, and then I had another child, and uh, working in professional careers and all those things, you're always focused on everybody else and keeping everybody else happy. And that also came from a childhood of abuse. I learned how to make sure everybody else was happy to avoid things, to protect myself, to keep my safety. And so I really spent that 3 years focusing on myself and figuring out my identity because I only had the identity of being a wife and a mother. And so now, 20 years later, my kids are grown. They're living on their own. I'm living alone for the first time in my life. And I had no idea who I was. And I'm sure you hear this all the time.
Yep,
I know
every
I
day.
hear it because those women are my focus. The Gen X generation. We have spent our life taking care of everyone. And so when you really start to question your identity, your values, what you want, like, desire, and you're focused on bringing that positive energy into your life, like you said, not the focus on what I don't want. I've already had what I don't want.
Yeah.
I want to focus on who I do want as a partner, the things I was looking for, and nowhere on the list, and I still have the list. I wrote it down. I still have it. Nowhere in that list is any of the negative things I didn't. So, that example was perfect. When you start and when you're putting that energy out into the world, that person, like you said, who's walking down the street and sees that rose, if that person isn't meant for you, they're going to keep on walking. But when you're carrying yourself with a certain energy and confidence and you're not looking for that good looking guy, then that's when they start coming to you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is every one of us has walked down the street. You saw a rose, it didn't do anything for you. But then maybe another one another day, and you're like, oh my gosh, it just stops you in your tracks. Why? Who knows why? It just happened to be a match for you. It doesn't mean there was anything wrong with the other rose. It doesn't mean there's anything special about this one other than it aligns with you. Your true essence and its essence match up. Cool. That's what we're looking for. But if we're trying to be what we think people want, then we're not really being who we are, which means no one will ever know what our true essence is. And we'll never have the chance for that person to go, there you are. Been looking for you.
Yeah, I love that. You talk about women having a blooming care tag, just like plants have that care label. What is it, and how does knowing your own care tag change how you show up in relationships?
Yeah, it's something that developed actually as I'm writing this book is when you go to a store to buy a plant, it has that little care tag. It says it needs this much sunlight, this much water, so on and so forth. And what that's literally telling you is this is what this plant needs to thrive. So you can go, do I have that space available? Do I have that amount of sunlight? Can I water it that often or am I gone too much? And you can identify, does this match what you need? So actually, bloom care tags is something most people don't have, but they could sure use because go back to that store. The plant without a tag, what do? You have no idea if it's a match for you. I don't know. I like it to be. It's a nice looking plant, but does it going to need more care than I can give it? Does it need a different environment than I have available? We don't know. So we have to guess. And this is what most people are doing is making the other person guess. But when we know what we need, we're very clear about what are those things that allow us to thrive. One, we can make sure we're getting those one way or another. But two, the other person doesn't have to guess anymore. And when we know that for ourselves, it helps us to bloom on a daily basis. You can look at it another way. If you think about it like the old comment you hear all the time of, the icing on the cake, which simply means something was good, was made even better with the icing, right? So if you think of yourself as the cake, and The ingredients for that cake is the same thing as a blooming care tag. Here's what's required for this cake to rise up and be a fabulous cake. Now, the person that you meet in your life that's your match, they're the icing on the cake. They're not an ingredient in the cake. There's all these ideas that, oh, he will complete me. No, you never put the icing in the cake. It's what goes on top of it. So our job is to make sure we're baking that cake every day. We're making sure we have the ingredients we need to be our best. Somebody else comes along, bonus. Now we get to share that job. But it's not their job to complete you. It's your job. And so the blooming care tag is your own reminder to yourself of, hey, I really need these things. And to your point, Leann, so many people have been trained their whole life to put their needs last. If you've got kids, the kids' needs come first. If you're married, oftentimes you put your spouse's needs first. Maybe you do the same at your work. Okay, when do you get to your needs? You never do. I've worked with more women that have recently divorced or ended a relationship, and I'll say, well, what do you need to be your best? It's like, I haven't thought about my needs in years. It's not even on the table. So the blooming care tag is making sure they're always front and center. And you're not guessing. You've actually done the due diligence. You figured it out. You've went and explored things, went, wow, I didn't know I really needed that like that way. But now that I do, I'm going to make sure I get it one way or another. It's not about them. It's about you taking care of you. And if somebody comes along and they're the icing on the cake, great. Maybe they can lighten that load.
I truly love that, Ken. I wish that I had had that thought, that information when I was at that point in my life, because those really were the questions. What do I even what do I even like?
Hmm?
Because I'd spent all those years being involved in scouting with my son or BMX or, cheerleading or whatever my daughter liked and whatever my partner liked. And so those things become your likes, even if they're really not your likes.
Exactly.
And so when you're at that point, like you said, women who are recently divorced, starting over, and they're having to figure out those things for themselves. I love your concept because it makes you step back and really think about those things first. And then, am I getting my needs met myself? Am I making sure my needs are met and not that external source or that external person? And one thing that doing the work for myself really helped me do was when I was ready to start dating, I had a voice for the first time in my life. And because of our age, we were both in our 50s, we had both been previously married. We both knew who we were and what we wanted in a partner. And so, literally, on our second date, we put it all on the table because both of us came into this relationship not wanting to waste the other person's time.
Yeah. Or your own. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to just kind of go into it and see where it landed. I went in with things like I am roots and not wings. I have lived here my entire life. I have no desire to move out of New Mexico. I love it here. Um, I am not someone that needs a big house or a shiny expensive car or purses or shoes or whatever that is. I didn't need those things. I'm very simple woman. I always call myself kind of a cheap date. It's not a bad thing or a negative thing. I just know who I
Yeah. Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what I was looking for. And so if he wasn't those things, then okay, we don't need to continue to try to mold our relationship into something. And he had the same things. He came in with the same kind of, I know I don't ever want to leave this state. He already had a home. And so I had already had the big house, the expensive cars, and the ton of debt. I was at a different phase where I don't have those things. I don't have all this debt, and I like my life. So we were that perfect match, but we really had to, I think, know who we were and know what we were looking for. And so I truly love what you have created here. I think that is, I think it's going to be gold for a lot of women.
Thank you. You made me think of something here, Leanne. One of my clients said this to me the other day, and I love it. She said she was talking with this guy, and I can't remember what she said, but she was being clear about what she needed to be her best. And he said, "Well, you're kind of picky." And she goes, "I'm not picky, I'm clear." Because so many of us go, "I'm just being picky. I don't want to be picky." You're not picky, you're clear. You know what works for you. That's your job. Nobody else is going to know that better than you. So it's your job to find out what that is. And sometimes it takes trial and error to get there. But then we know it and we don't compromise it. We go, yeah, this is what I need to be my best. I want to bloom and be my best with everyone in my life. So that's on me. And if somebody disparages it and says, oh, you're just picky, maybe they're not your match because clearly they're really on board for what you need.
And I think having that ability to have that open, honest communication with a partner, a prospective partner is really so powerful. And it also acknowledges that nobody is a mind reader in this game. And I can't
Yeah,
expect you to know what it is I need, I want. And I don't know what you need and you want if you don't tell me and respect that I am not a mind reader. And so that was, again, that was a learned experience for me going into this kind of relationship, as well as finding my voice, because I had always been that child of be seen and not heard. And so I didn't know how to have a voice, even in my 20s and my 30s, even in the corporate world. I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I had confidence, but there's a difference between having confidence and having a voice.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so this conversation's great. I really appreciate it. In your book, The Blooming Effect, you describe three stages of blooming: the thorny green plant, the budding rose, and the fully blooming rose. Can you walk us through these three stages and how a woman might recognize which stage she is in right now?
Yeah. And, those are really important distinctions. And I could walk you through it, but I actually want to do one better, which is I created a quiz that all the listeners can take to find out what their stage is specifically. And we'll give you the link at the end of the show. But just know that what it tells you is okay, here's where I am currently. It's not good, bad, or awful. It's just the reality. Now, what do I need to do next? What's my next step? So, hang on to the end of the show. We'll give you the link for it. It's a free quiz. You just go in there, fill out, I think it's 10 or 15 questions, and it will give you the response of here's the stage you're currently in. Here's next steps you can take.
I love it. I love it. Many of my listeners are in midlife transition. As I mentioned, that's my focus of the women that I work with. What wisdom would you share with women who feel like it's too late to bloom?
Yeah, and I hear this every single day. Right? I missed my window. It's too late. I've got too much baggage. Yada 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 yada. Any variation on the theme. And I've worked with women into their 80s on blooming. It doesn't matter age. Age has nothing to do with it. It's about getting your needs met. Because think about a rose. If it's sitting there and it doesn't get some of its needs met, it doesn't die, but it doesn't bloom. But once it gets its needs met, like if it's been really dry and it hasn't had any rain, and then the shower comes through, it opens up. It can't help but bloom when it gets its needs met. So if you haven't bloomed yet, it simply means your needs haven't been met, right? So again, it has zero to do with age, nothing at all. What it has to do with is taking ownership of what do you need to be your best. And much like you were saying, Leanne, it's more than just knowing what it is. You have to act on it. A lot of people go, well, yeah, I know I need this, but I'm embarrassed to take action on that, or I don't want to tell anybody, or I think it might upset someone. Well, that's not going to help you bloom. That's just going to leave you tortured by the fact that you know what you need and you're still not getting it. So we have to take that next level of ownership and go, you know what? I'm doing this because I want to be my best with everyone. And when you flip that around, you realize how generous that is. What an amazing gift that you're committed to being your best with people, even if it means having uncomfortable conversations, taking time for yourself when you've been told in the past you need to put everybody else's needs first and so on. It's no, I'm doing this because it's the best gift I can give you, is my fullest expression, me being able to show up my best with you every time. That's an amazing gift to give someone. So when we realize that's really what we're doing, it changes us from that resistance of, oh no, but it'll be too much to ask, to, of course I'm going to do this because I'm committed to being my best with you.
Yeah, and it is such a powerful, like you said, it's a gift that you can give to somebody else, is being your best, most authentic self and being able to speak your truth and not living in a world of shame and fear and assumption. If you assume what somebody else is going to say, do, or think, you're taking yourself completely out of the game. And I learned that truly for myself, coming into my most authentic self and being able to share my wants, my needs, my desires, and truly who I am with the people who are closest to me made it so much easier for me to share that with everyone and not be focused on what they may think, do, or say. If they don't like it, if they disagree with it, fine. There's the door. You're not my people.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you can be open minded, if you can lead with your heart, and if you can appreciate that I am showing up for myself and that I give you permission to do the same thing, then those conversations can be so fruitful in a relationship, in a friendship, in everything you do.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is, we were talking about earlier, if a rose blooms and somebody just walks by, the rose doesn't care. That's because the rose knows they weren't rejected. They were recognized. Somebody saw, oh, nice rose. Okay, not mine. It's not, there's something wrong with you. It's just, hey, we're not a match. Okay, no big deal. That's not good or bad. It's just a fact. We don't match. Now, the problem is we get attached to, but they have to be the right one. I don't think there's any other options. There's such a limited choices and all these ideas that we make up that aren't true. Right? There's 4 billion of each gender on the planet. We're not limited in options, but we sit there and we go, "Oh, well, I went out with 3 different guys. They weren't a good match. So there must not be anyone for me." I had a woman once come into my class. It was so great. So she was from India. She grew up in India. And she said, Ken, I'm Hindu. And I just moved here to Colorado. And like, there's only 300,000 Hindus in the state. What am I supposed to do? And I said, how many are you looking for? And she went, oh, yeah, I guess that's plenty, isn't it? But she was used to millions. So she literally was like, there's such a limited audience. It's not everybody I talk to is Hindu. Okay. It doesn't mean there's no one available. I was working with a woman the other day in Las Vegas, and she said, my faith, there's this, there's only this many people in this group that I'm in, which is like 100 people. But when we did the research, we found out there's 100,000 of her faith in that town. It was like, okay, so just because only 100 show up to this one group doesn't mean there aren't more than 100 available. But we get our myopic view of, oh, well, it just is an option. No, there's lots of options. We just have to keep being ourselves. And then again, it's not about chasing and going to find it. It will find you. I can't tell you how many women I've worked with that when they found their partner, the guy said, where have you been hiding? Oftentimes they had known these people for years and were never drawn to them because they had never shown up as who they really were. So they didn't even know that was them. Then they went, how did we not know this? I've known you since college. And they're in their 50s. And once that woman started blooming and being her best self, this man is like, huh? How did we miss this? Well, that's what happens when we hide who we are.
Well, I'll share a perfect example that will show 100% what you just said.
Okay.
So, my husband, we've been married 7 years, together 8, but we grew up on the same block. He lived at one end, I lived at the other end. And we knew each other as neighborhood kids, hanging out, riding bikes, whatever. We went to the same middle school. We went to the same high school. In high school, him and his twin brother had a garage band. So me and all my girlfriends, of course, would go down and hang out and listen to the guys. And then we went different directions. We hung in different cliques and we went different directions in life. Like I said, I had my daughter at 17, so straight out of high school. And then I moved to a little town about 40 miles south of where we are now, here in Albuquerque. And then I came back after my divorce, and a friend of mine had asked me to be her maid of honor in her wedding. And he was a guest at the wedding. And that was literally all it took. I was ready for that relationship. And when I saw him after the wedding, I went over to go and talk to him, and he gave me a hug that was so magical. It was the first time I felt like I was seen, that I mean, the safety that came out of his body and into mine was a connection I can't even explain to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when it is meant for you, you will know it. It will hit you and knock you off your feet, and you will know it. But like you said, I mean, we never saw each other that way all those years.
Yep. Isn't that amazing?
So
Yeah.
just wanted to
And we
share.
don't realize that that's what we're doing because we're so busy trying to be what we think people want. But, you know, that's like going, well, I always think back to when I was in college and it was the era of Madonna, big summer of Madonna. And the next year, half the girls on campus came back dressed like Madonna. And it was so funny because it's like, well, they're just like in competition with each other to see who looks the most like Madonna. But I don't like you would go to parties and they never got attention. They were too busy competing with each other to look more like Madonna, but none of the guys wanted to date Madonna. So they were getting dates, but the girls who were being themselves were. And eventually that whole phase went away. And suddenly these girls showed up again that weren't Madonna anymore. And they were themselves. And it was just so funny because that was an extreme thing because it was such a huge part of the population. But that's what we're doing when we're trying to be somebody else. That's not that interesting to a guy. Yes, you could have the surface connection, but that leads to the frustration people have as they just want a surface relationship. Well, yeah, that's all you're sharing. So we have to let more show up. Think about that rose. The surface is thorns. It's not real attractive. Right? But when we let the inside out, we bloom. That's what draws them in. So we have to keep in mind that it's not about that external presentation. It's when it comes from the inside. And yes, everybody's sitting going, but that's scary. That's vulnerable. But, God put all the good stuff on the other side of fear. So we have to face those fears and go, you know what? I know everybody's not going to like this any more than everybody's going to like one particular rose. Look at it, movie stars, right? Everybody doesn't like any particular star. Doesn't matter who they are. It's normal. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means there's something distinctive about you. That's what makes you valuable.
I love that example. That's just another great example of what can get in our way. Competition is huge. It is, if
It's
that
enormous.
is where your focus is, then you're not being your most authentic self, and people just aren't going to see. You're going to be lost in that crowd. And you really do want to be outside of that crowd, whether you're doing it for yourself or, maybe so someone else will see you. But when you blend in with everybody else, you're just another single rose on a very large rose bush.
Well, and it's also why men aren't approaching you. Well, I hear this all the time, especially online dating. People are like, well, these guys just think they just turn on to the next page and find somebody else because they're all the same. So, what we have to realize is the men are out there. Anytime they approach a woman, whether it's online or in person, he's risking being rejected. So, you have to be distinctive enough to be worth the risk. If you're just like everybody else, why am I risking that? I can just keep going. There's nothing that's worth the risk. I had a client that I knew personally before she came to me, and she asked me to help her with her dating profile. So she sent it to me, and I read it, and I swear I didn't think it was hers. It was so vanilla. And I'm like, what, where are you in this? She's like, well, those things are like, they're too, I think they'd be weird. People wouldn't like them. I'm like, that's the point. That way they get to sort themselves out. But somebody's going to love that. So we looked at the data behind her profile. In 1 year, over 12,000 men had looked at her profile. Less than 100 had contacted because there was no reason to. She was the same as everybody else in the profiles. But when you stand out, you will literally get guys going, wow, your profile is really interesting. Yeah, because it's not generic.
Mhm.
You can go online, literally do this, ladies, flip it around, get on your whatever dating site you're on, and put in that you're a guy looking for women in your age group. So you can see what they see. And I promise you, if you take 10 profiles, 9 of them will be almost verbatim the same. I like going out to dinner. I like to travel. You'll say all the things you think he wants to hear. And now you see why he doesn't have any reason to contact you. You're the same as everybody else. Your job is to be you. And that, by definition, is different than anyone else. Yes, there's similarities, but you're distinctive. Own them. That's what blooming is about.
Yeah, another great example. Not too long ago, this came out on the news, and it was a photographer who had spent the first half of her career photographing weddings.
Hmm.
She had met a lady, or a lady had reached out to her and said, I want to update my dating profile. Can I hire you to do a photo shoot of me doing the things that I enjoy doing? And that to me was like seeing a true side of somebody other than just looking at a selfie, or they really got to see who this woman was and the things she enjoyed doing that made her so much more. I mean, and just comparing the images side by side, because they showed what she had on her profile versus a couple of images that the photographer had taken. And it was like night and day. The glow in this woman's smile, the sparkle in her eye, and just seeing that she was truly being herself, doing what she enjoyed. And so I like how you said, if you really look at who you are portraying yourself as and do it from the reverse side of that and see, this is how other people are perceiving you. Is this how you want to be perceived? I mean, is it truly you? I think if you step back and look at that, you'd be surprised at how that is really stopping you from blooming, shining.
Exactly.
So you introduced something called the blooming operating system. That sounds fascinating and a bit unexpected for a relationship book. What is it and how does it help women navigate love differently?
Well, the blooming operating system, Leanne, is it's based on the premise that we receive what we believe, not what we desire. Almost everyone out there has these, oh, I'd really like to meet a great guy. Yeah, but there really aren't any left. Remember, that's what you're feeding your reticular activating system. Okay, so I'm going to go find all the unavailable guys now because that's what you were focused on. So we have to switch our beliefs. And everybody has them. They're self-preservation, right? It's just trying to take care of yourself. Oh, well, let's not get our hopes up. Okay. So what happens? We weren't born with self-doubt. When you were a baby, you didn't have any of that, but we picked it up over time, right? People's opinions, people's suggestions, their fears get projected onto us, and we eventually adopt them. They just start to grow like little seeds of doubt. And suddenly we don't believe that we're valuable. We don't believe that we're beautiful. We don't believe that we're lovable. That's the operating system that's operating in the background for you, just like a computer, right? Computers have operating systems that you don't really notice they're there, but they're there, and everything else works on top of that. Without the operating system, no program will work. Same in your life. So You have these negative beliefs, these limiting beliefs, these self doubt beliefs. That's the operating system. That's like, and they may have served you at some point, right? Some of those beliefs may have been valuable at one point in your life, but they're not now. So that would be like trying to take a brand new computer and put Windows 95 on it. Windows 95 was the best thing ever 30 years ago. Now, you couldn't do anything. No program would run. You couldn't get on the internet. It would be holding you back. That's literally what happens when you have an outdated operating system. Whether you're operating from this premise of I'm looking for this when that's not relevant to your life anymore, you're at a different stage of life, or you're just following all this doubt. And a lot of it comes from your experience, right? Oh, well, somebody said this to me. Okay. Does that help you? You don't have to adopt it. They're not running your life unless you let them. So your blooming operating system is updating that, shifting it to beliefs that align with your goals. Not, I really want to be loved and find a great partner, but I don't believe it's possible. That doesn't align with your goals. We have to be switching that. We have to update that so that you no longer are self-sabotaging. And that's the thing that's so sneaky about it is because it's the operating system, just like on your computer, you don't even remember that it's going all the time. You never have to turn it on. You never have to access it, just automatically launches the whole computer. Same with your life. From the moment you wake up, boom, that operating system is engaged and it's limiting you all day long. So that's what the blooming operating system is getting that shift in your belief structure so that you have one that aligns with your goals.
I like it. I like it. Yep, definitely. It's something that takes presence. It takes, you looking inside and really identifying, what are your values? What are your goals? Are, like you said, are these beliefs, thoughts, and desires, are they in line with those things? And when you start to have those things come up that are not in alignment with your goals, now, I mean, you see it, you feel it, and it's okay. You can question it. You can sit down with it a minute and you can see, like, where did this come from? Did it come from religion? Did it come from my mother? Did it come from my grandmother? How did I develop this operating system? Where did it come from? And what do I need to do to upgrade it?
Yeah.
Because these things are no longer in alignment with me.
Well, and the thing is, they're so sneaky because they're subconscious. You don't even realize you're doing it. Like virtually every day when I'm working with women that I coach, they'll start going down a path and they'll be like, I really want this, but that. And they keep exposing these limiting beliefs. And I'll be like, did you realize you said this? I did. They don't even know they're saying, even when it's coming out of their mouth, it's become so natural. They don't realize how they're literally pulling the plug on themselves every day. So oftentimes we could sit and go, no, I don't do any of that stuff. But from the outside, an observer would go, what are you talking about? You just did that 3 times in the last minute and a half. I did. We don't even realize it. Same thing goes for focusing on what you don't want. I have people do that all the time, tell me what they don't want. And I'll be like, do you know how many times you told me what you don't want when I asked you what you do want? No, I didn't. And then I play it back for them. And they're like, because they thought what they didn't want is what they do want. You can't create a negative. So again, we don't even know we're doing it. And this is why it's really tricky. The operating system is one of the toughest things to upgrade because just like on your computer, right? You think about my computer's not working right. Well, the professional, the tech can come in and look at it and go, oh, you have all these programs or all these, viruses on there. You didn't even know were there, but that's why it's not working right. He's skilled in observing and recognizing them where you work with it every day and you don't even notice. So know that your assessment of your operating system can oftentimes be veiled behind those fears. And you won't even notice the problems that are running, just like on your computer when there's a virus, because it's incremental. It's built up over time. You didn't notice life slowing down. You didn't notice things getting smaller. You didn't notice. And then you're like, I don't know why this doesn't feel very good because all that's added up. It's like the box you were living in kept getting smaller and smaller till it's not even big enough for you to be in. So we have to be very careful because we can tell ourselves we're good because we don't notice because they're subconscious.
Yeah, I found that out when I first started coaching, was giving my clients the option to have a recorded session, which is much easier virtual than it was in person. But if they consented to it, then they could receive a copy of that recording and they could hear themselves with those limiting beliefs. Because, like you said, it's so ingrained in us that we don't even
Yeah,
realize we're doing
we
it.
don't even notice.
And when you point it out, they can choose to become defensive, they can deny it, whatever the case may be. But if they're
Act
willing
like that
to,
was an anomaly. Oh, that never happens. That was I don't know, that must have been a weird day.
I don't know why I said that.
Okay, well, every time I've talked to you, you've done it, but if you say that's only happens when you talk to me, okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
being able to gift them that gift of a recording to where they could go back and listen to themselves say it. I used to see huge growth from people once they really started to listen to what was coming out of their mouth.
exactly, and that's the part, right? So now it becomes conscious, it's no longer subconscious, and once it becomes conscious, then we have power because now we have choice. But if we're subconscious, we're not making a choice. We're just doing the thing that we've always been doing that's got programmed in there whenever, and we've been doing it ever since, and we don't even know we do it anymore. So that's always the first step. We have to make it conscious. So now we're in a position of power to choose, do I keep doing this? Does it serve me? Or is there a better option?
Exactly. You say that one of the most common mistakes that women make is thinking that their needs make them needy. And
Hmm.
that's such a relatable fear. How can women start honoring their needs without feeling like they're asking for too much?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's the most natural thing in the world. If I have needs, doesn't that mean I'm needy? And so even talking about needs like I do in my book, it's like that fine line. People are like, oh, I don't want to have needs. But here's the thing, we all have needs. Right? Everybody, everything that's alive has needs. Physical needs, emotional needs, spiritual needs. We all have them. All that needs having needs means is you're alive. That's what it means. Now, the difference is needs don't make you needy. What makes you needy is when you don't take care of your needs for yourself. So, for example, imagine you keep running out of gas, right? And whenever you do, you call your boyfriend or your husband and he comes and saves you. Now, that means that you ignored the gas gauge, you didn't pay any attention to the warning light, you drove past countless gas stations and just drove until it ran out of gas and then expected him to drop everything and come fix it. That's needy. You have needs and you're not willing to do anything about them. You think the rest of the world is responsible for your needs. Having needs is normal, that's natural. You are deserving of every need you've ever had because the divine doesn't give you a need as a joke. He's not a practical joker. It's, hey, this is what you need to bloom. Just like the blooming care tag. Needs this much water, this much sunlight, this much nutrients, and this much room. Okay, that's its needs. Now you don't have to give it that, but it's not going to bloom. So it's a choice. Do I care? I don't have a judgment. If you want to just keep living a life of survival, that's fine. But if you want to thrive and be your best and have that full expression, you have to own the fact that you have needs. And the only way they're needy is if you want somebody else to take care of them for you.
Yeah. And that is a huge shift for some women.
Hmm.
Again, speaking for myself, speaking for some of the women that I've coached, when you grow up being told that you are selfish when you put your needs
Hmm.
first, it is really hard to be able to speak up and truly speak your needs to another person because you are so ingrained into believing you're being selfish and that they're going to judge you, whatever the case may be. It's one of those limiting beliefs. You assume that speaking up for yourself and communicating your needs makes you a selfish person.
Yeah. And that comes back to what we talked about earlier of that's going to be true for you if you don't understand that being focused on your needs and making sure those are being met is the most generous thing you can do. It's because we think it is selfish. This is self centered. No, it's how I get to be my most with you. What could be a greater gift? But we don't realize that. We keep going, well, this is just for me. Really? That rose is blooming because it's a rose. It can't help itself. And that's just for it? Like it doesn't share its fragrance or its beauty with anyone? No, by nature, it's automatically being its best with you. It's being the fullest expression of the divine that it can be. And every one of us is a specific expression of the divine. So, what's selfish is not taking care of our needs because now we're withholding that gift. Yeah, you don't deserve the best. That's literally what we're doing. We're telling the world they don't deserve the gift that is us. And I know some of you are sitting there going, well, I'm not a gift. Everyone has gifts. They don't have to be globally impacting. You don't have to be Oprah. You don't have to do all that kind of, every one of us is a gift. And it's not a gift for everyone. It's a gift for those people it's supposed to be. I always say it's kind of like if you think of yourself as like a lighthouse keeper, right? So lighthouses, their job is keep that light shining all day, every day, as bright as they can. Now they don't know who it's going to help because they don't know who's out there. But they don't go, well, yeah, here comes somebody deserving. I guess I'll turn the light on. They do it all the time. And the people that it works for, they are so grateful. Oh my gosh, you just saved us. And other people go, oh yeah, there's the lighthouse. It doesn't matter. It's not about us knowing who it's going to serve. We're doing it because it's who we are. That lighthouse keeper has one job, and he does it every day because he knows somehow, somewhere, at some time, that's going to serve somebody. It's going to be a gift. But it's not up for him to know who it's going to be a gift to. He's just committed to making sure the gift's available. And that's what our job is. I want to make sure I'm blooming so that gift's available. And there's a great quote I love that says, when the rose blooms, the bee appears. But until it blooms, the bee buzzes right on by. We've got to bloom. We've got to let the world in and show us what we have. Again, it's not for everyone, but the one that it's right for will now be able to see that.
That is so beautiful. Hopefully, women are paying attention and listening because honestly, Ken, I never had another person in my life tell me what you're telling me today. So I didn't know the concept of having a full cup or blooming, whatever analogy you want to put to it. No one had ever told me that had I been taking better care of myself, I would have been my best self for everyone else and for myself. And
Bingo.
I would have been able to be more, do more, enjoy more, show up for more because I was taking care of myself to be that best self. But no one ever told me that I should be doing that because the people who were talking to me, my aunts, my mom, my grandmother, teachers, whoever, they were telling me how to be the best mother,
Mhm.
which meant having a good job with good benefits, cooking healthy meals, making sure my kids had clothes, making sure my kids had a roof over their head. Those are all beautiful things. And those are all things that we want to do. But like you were talking about earlier, choice. We can choose how we show up in the world. And when we fully show up, fully engaged in our best self, then all of those other things that are part of our life are so full because we have brought that to it. We have showed up in that way. And I love your flowers beside you. I love the colors. It's a reminder that, those flowers need water. And that means we have to make sure we're drinking enough water in the day. And if we're not, we're going to be foggy in our thinking. We may have headaches and we wonder, why is my head hurting? Did you drink enough water today? You have to look at that care tag from time to time and say, oh, I probably need to get up and go get a big glass of water. maybe I need to step outside for a few minutes and get some sunlight. Here in New Mexico, we have like 350 days of sunshine a year. But even though we have that much sunshine here, if we're not outside reaping the benefit of that vitamin D, when you look at the population here, the majority of people are still very deficient in vitamin D. So take a few minutes. When you wake up in the morning and the sun is coming up, drink your water outside. Just take that few minutes to welcome in all of that beauty in the world and replenish your body that's been sleeping for 8, 9 hours and hasn't had a drink of water. So, like I said, again, I'll say it again, I really love your care tag idea. It's that reminder that we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, what about the women who struggle with feeling not enough? What is
Yeah.
the first practical step toward building that genuine self love?
Well, this is a super common belief, right? Especially after a breakup or divorce. You feel self-doubt, you're like, "I'm not even worthy of love," especially if your ex has moved on. Then you're like, "Well, my gosh, I must not be enough. Of course, that must be what it means. I wasn't enough for him, so he went and found somebody who was enough." Right? So these are the stories we tell ourselves. And then we start to question, well, would anybody really be interested in dating me or even loving me? Well, here's the thing. If you're in that space, right, and you're constantly going, "Oh, I'm not enough. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. Maybe for somebody else." You're not going to find a high quality partner because a high quality partner vibrates at a high vibration and not enough is a very low vibration. So we have to go, this isn't about comparison. See, you've all heard the phrase comparison is the death of joy. Well, as we were talking about my Madonna example earlier, when we try and be like someone other than ourselves, we create competition because you are one of one. There's no competition if you're being you. It's because we try and be like everybody else we see having success over there, but they're not us. So even what worked for them probably isn't going to work for us because it's not us. And then we go, well, how come it works for them and not us? Because they're being themselves and you're not. It's not because what they were doing wasn't viable. It was because it was true for them. So we get in comparison mode and we go, I'm not enough. They moved on to someone else. That must mean I'm not enough. No, it means, remember, not rejected, recognized, not a match. That's neutral. And sometimes it could have been you were with them for a long time. You're like, well, how would they not known that before? Who cares? We can hang on to the past and let it beat us up and keep reliving it. Or we can go, okay, let's move forward. And I know that I'm enough. And I want to wake up every morning going, I'm enough. It's not about compared to, you take that part off the equation. I'm enough. Who I am is enough. And it's going to be more than enough for the right person. Yes, there's going to be way more people that it's not a right thing for because that's how it works. If you're looking for one person out of 4 billion, that means almost 4 billion aren't the right person. So we are going to see more people that aren't aligned. That's perfectly fine. That's why the more we can be true to ourselves, the faster we sort because those other people get to sort themselves in or out. We don't have to go chasing and do the work. We just show up and just like the rose, just go bloom and be yourself. Hey, I like that rose. The rest of them, they're nice, but they're not the rose that I'm drawn to. I was at the International Rose Test Garden. It's up in Portland, Oregon, and there's 10,000 rose bushes in this garden. And I was walking through there, and it's just amazingly overwhelming with all these beautiful roses, different colors, different sizes. And then this one rose caught my attention. Now, why did that rose out of 10,000 roses stand out? I can't tell you. But it was just like, what is that? And I love the fragrance and I love the size of it and I love the color. And I was just like, and I'm like looking around like, how could this have stood out? Because it aligned with who I was. And then I went, wow. Even in all that different, distraction of other roses that some of them were the American Beauty rose and the ones that you think are the classic roses. That wasn't what this one was. This one was like pink and orange and yellow all mixed together. It looked like baby aspirin, like when you had them when you were a kid. That's the color it was. I didn't even know that color existed in roses, but it stopped me in my tracks. So again, that rose got walked by thousands of people every day. And it didn't sit there going, I'm not enough. It just kept being me. It was, here I am. I'm this rose. Maybe a color you never seen before. Maybe it's a color you're looking for. I don't know. I wasn't looking for it, but when I saw it, I knew it was mine. And honestly, I kind of like didn't really care if I walked through the rest of the garden. That's what we do. But it wasn't sitting there going, I know I'm supposed to be this yellow, pink, orange rose, but I'm going to try and be red because everybody likes red. It said, I'm enough. Not for everyone, but for me. And then I can let that confidence out so that other people see it. So that's really the shift is you have to step back and instead of going, I'm not enough compared to, and just go, I am enough, period. There's no comparison involved. Yes, I'm at a different stage in life. I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not as tall as well, you're probably as tall. Not the same weight as I used.
I don't
I
know.
don't wear the
We
same
shrink.
clothes as I used to be. All those things, right? That's all comparison. Once we just go, I'm going to celebrate who I am and where I am at this moment in time. There may have been other times I enjoyed just as much or even more. That doesn't mean that this time is bad. It's just what is. And we could fully be present with what is. Cool. And yes, you're going to have good days and bad days. Everybody does. So you're like, I'm doing the best I can with what I have today. Because we can always go, well, yeah, but if I had this, you don't. So why are we talking about that, right? If you're baking that cake that we were talking about earlier and you don't have some ingredient, why are we talking about it? You're going to do the best you can with what you have. And if it's an essential ingredient like eggs, for example, you go, well, then I better go get some eggs because I'm committed to baking that cake. So it's a tough one because there's so much comparison in the world. Every single ad in the world is based on you're not enough without our product. And we see roughly 40,000 images a day, both in your face, every sign you drive by, every you're not enough unless you drive this car, wear this thing, eat this food. It's endless. And the feminine is wired to be externally motivated. In other words, all those comments motivate your actions. And it's brutal because you're constantly hearing, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And we all know the cliche of you look in a magazine and those aren't even how those people look because they're photoshopped. Yeah. And yet it's still getting in there. Yeah, but if I only look like her, she doesn't look like her. That's the irony. And I'll tell you something. I had a friend of mine who was a photo or a art director for Vogue magazine. He said, you've never met more insecure people than models. He goes, because think about their life. So they're told their value is their appearance. They walk into a photo shoot and the photographer, or he goes, I'm guilty as an art director. We thought they were going to look like this as they did in their portfolio. And they show up and there's something different, something in their complexion. They look a little heavier, whatever. And we beat them up so bad. Get out of here, you fat, ugly bitch. What are you doing here? He goes, it's not pretty. And I'm embarrassed that I did it, but that's what that world is. So the people you're aspiring to are even more caught up in this because they're constantly being told their value is that thing and that only. So again, you're enough wherever you are. Now, it doesn't mean you can't keep building, but not because you want to be like someone else, but because you want to be more you. Then you get a bloom and get that person to stop dead in their tracks in the middle of 10,000 roses and go, where have you been?
Yeah. More great examples of that external source that becomes limiting beliefs in us or comparison or perfectionism or whatever it is that's controlling who we think we are or who we think somebody wants in their life. Again, it's these assumptions, and those are the things that can really keep us stuck and not showing up for ourselves and who we are. And I think, again, like we were talking about earlier, dating profiles. So many people will post an image of themselves that is 10 years plus younger than they are today. And then you finally agree to meet this person in person, and the first thing you look at is you don't look anything like your photo. And that may bring up all kinds of different thoughts. Oh, this person's a liar. They're not genuine. Um, I was attracted to that version of you, but not this version of you. And so then you wonder, like, well, what does that say about me? There's just so many things that can come up in that. And I think, like you said, if we just show up as who we are, yes, we're in our 50s. No, we're not in our 30s. Yes, I have more wrinkles. I have this, I have that. I am not somebody that is affected by age. It has never bothered me coming up on the next 10 years or the next 5 years or whatever. I have always appreciated every day that I get in life on this side of the dirt. And every day I learn something new. And as long as I can continue to do that and continue to show up for myself, all that other stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I have wrinkles and smile lines means I've smiled in my life. It's just never been something that's been important to me to share an image of me from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago and say, this is who I am because it's not, it's who I was. And I won't say it's not who I am, but it was at a different season of my life. And I'm okay to show up as who I am today and every day. So let's talk about those women who have been through heartbreak and loss. What's the very first step that they can take to bloom again, especially when they feel closed off or cautious about loving again?
Yeah, this is a tough one sometimes, right? Because by nature, what we tend to do is a relationship ends and we go back and critique every statement, every text, every everything to figure out what we do wrong. It goes back to I'm not enough. Somehow I failed. It's all on me and I must have done this. Now occasionally there's not that case, but even like in the case of infidelity, well then why was he looking for something else? There must be something I did wrong. And we go back and we beat ourselves up. That's not really helpful. That's not going to move you forward. So what I recommend is that you look at it as okay, that experience, whatever that relationship was, I want to find out what was the gift that I'm taking forward. Could be one, could be several, and leave the rest behind. It's kind of like if you think about when somebody hands you a birthday present, right? They hand you this nice box and it's all wrapped up. It's got a bow and a ribbon and it's beautiful. And when they hand it to you, you're like, this is the present. Now, you tear off the bow, get rid of the ribbon, open the box, and then you see inside whatever they presented you. You take that out. And as soon as you take it out of the box, all the rest of it turns into trash. That wasn't the gift. That was the container that brought you the gift. So when we can go, okay, let me look at my relationship. What was the gift inside that container? And sometimes the gift is something we want to build on, like, oh, that's great. And I love that. And I want more of that going forward. Or it's something we're like, I allowed that and I'm not going to going forward. But either way, we take the gift, just like with that birthday present. We go home with that and keep building on that, and we throw away the rest. We don't dwell on it. We don't go, why did they put it in that box? And oh my gosh, and that ribbon wasn't really on there straight. We don't care. We've recognized the gift inside the package. So when we can do that, that's our first step forward. Instead of just reliving the packaging over and over and over and over again and going, well, how come that wasn't part of the gift? Do you ever ask that question at your birthday presents? I mean, somebody could keep the box and think that's part of the gift. That's fine too. It's your choice. You get to choose what you take forward, but take forward the stuff you want to build on, not the stuff you want to avoid.
More great advice. Thank you, Ken. More great advice. Such a beautiful way to look at it. And such a great example because it is hard when a relationship ends, like you said, if in the case of infidelity or, whatever the case may be, just because something ended doesn't mean it is the end of your life. It is the beginning of the next chapter of your life. And like you said, it's being able to recognize the difference between the wrapping paper and the gift in the box. And the gift is what you want to take with you? Do you want to set it out? Do you want to put it in a drawer? Whatever the case may be, that is your choice of how you see it, appreciate it, love it, care for it. And that is you when you're starting a new phase in life. But if you stay just focused on the past and what you did wrong and what you could have done differently, and I mean, you can get stuck in that rabbit hole and the ruminating thoughts, and it can just be so destructive to your soul. And it becomes that limiting belief that will keep you from moving forward. So, your example was a great example for how we can set aside those thoughts and focus on truly what is in front of us right now, what is part of us right now. You challenge a lot of mainstream dating advice in this book.
What?
What is one popular relationship tip that you believe actually keeps women stuck?
Well, I absolutely know for certain this keeps women stuck, and it's the belief that the less needs you have, the more attractive you are to women. And it again, part of it is this idea of, oh, see, I just can't have needs because it makes me needy and nobody wants a needy woman. But as we talked about, having needs doesn't make you needy. And here's why this is such a detriment when you follow that belief. Men need to be needed. And many people go, oh, yeah, I've heard that before. Or I know that's true. Well, then why are you hiding your needs? Because here's what happens for the masculine. The masculine is wired, not even wired, is to contribute to the betterment of your life. So if you don't have any needs, I got it. No, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm ultra independent. He's not going to see a role in in your life, and he will leave. And you may have even heard this where a man was breaking up and he said, you don't really need me. And you're like, yes, I do. But you haven't told him in any way what you need. And so he thought, there's no place for me here. So he leaves. Men need to be needed. That's what they're wired for. They're there to contribute to your life. But they're the world's worst guessers. As we talked about earlier, we can't read minds. They've done surveys and they ask men, what's the number one thing that you wish the women in your life knew that would improve your relationship? About 80% of the responses every single time are just tell us what you need. We can't read your minds. And here's why. Your needs aren't their needs. One, because you're a different person, but two, because you're a woman. Women are wired differently. You have different needs than he does. They seem obvious to you because they're so visceral. They're so emotionally tied. And you're like, well, how can you not know that? Because he doesn't have that need. He's wired differently. It doesn't make your needs bad. It makes them yours. So you have to own them. You have to let him know what those are. If you follow that premise of if you have the less needs you have, the more desirable you are, you will find takers, men who don't want to contribute. They're out there. And then you'll be like, well, he never gives back. No, because you were inviting a taker in. You were saying, I don't have any needs. I'm just here for you. Because somebody somewhere along the way got you to believe that if you just gave enough, they'd eventually turn around and give back. But they're takers. They have zero interest in giving back. It's kind of like imagine that you're a chair, right? Like you're probably sitting in a chair right now. What are you doing for that chair? Nothing. I had one woman say I'm holding it down, but gravity actually does that. So what's happening? The chair is the one doing all the work, giving, supporting, letting that person be there and relax and be their best. Have you ever in your life gotten up out of a chair, turned around, and asked the chair what it needed? No, because that's not the role of a chair. And that's not your role as the person sitting down. So when you are doing this whole thing of, oh, I can't have any needs. I'm just here for you. I want to contribute. I want to serve you. I want to be there and be the person that's giving and sacrificing. You will attract guys who are just looking to sit down. And then you'll wonder why they never give back. Because the guy who gives back is the one who gets to contribute. And if you don't have any way to contribute, guess what? The guy that wants to give back isn't going to be attracted to that. So please know your needs are not the devil. Your needs are amazing gifts to guys. Now, again, you're in charge of your needs, but you can always invite him to support you in those needs. It's not his job to take care of them. That would be needy. It's his job to be your advocate, your supporter. Maybe he takes it off your plate. Maybe he's just like, hey, you need to do that. Great. I'll take care of this so you have time to do so. That's still supporting your needs. So know that your needs are not a terrible thing to men. They need you to have them or they won't see a place in your life.
More great information and wisdom. Thank you for sharing that. I was listening to a podcast just yesterday that the podcast host was talking about her expectation and communicating that to her partner. She's like, if you expect me to show up in just this specific way, then I'm an inanimate object. What I expect in this relationship is a partner I can communicate with, I can share with. We can talk about what we're both interested in and get to know more about each other. But if you expect me to only show up this one particular way, then there really is no place for me in this relationship because that's not what I'm here for. And so it was an interesting to because she had talked about, well, I've done episodes on this specific topic before. It was years ago, but this is how I've grown as a person. And so now when I come to the table to negotiate or to talk about who I am and what I want, need, and desire, then I hope that you're the person on the other side of the table who is going to listen to what I have to say. And we can have a mutual conversation about who you are and who I am so that we can make a conscious choice about do we want to move forward from here? Because if
Yeah.
this is what you expect and I'm not what you expect, then this isn't going to work out. You're not my people.
Yeah. And I,
So
I just want
again,
to add to what you said there, Leanne, because there's probably people listening that heard me describe the chair and they're like, oh, I'm the chair. I've been the chair. That doesn't mean you're stuck there. You can transform that because that's just the way you've been taught to operate. Again, go back to when you were born. You didn't start out being a chair. You were trained to be a chair. You were told that's what makes you lovable. That's how you're going to get the guy to be into you. It was poor advice. I mean, yeah, you'll get a guy, but unless you just want to be the giver all the time and you want to serve the taker, it won't be a guy that has long term, satisfaction. So just know if you were sitting there going, I'm the chair, I've been the chair in every relationship I've ever had, that doesn't mean you're stuck. You can still bloom. You just have to learn the techniques to do it.
and that's what you're here for.
It is
You're
what I
here to
do.
help
That is true.
you're here to help show women that you're not stuck. You can make choices, you can change, you can grow, you can bloom. But let's look at those things that are keeping you in the shadows and show you how you can show up and bloom and speak your truth and just all those beautiful things that we not always have been given that roadmap in life. And so really recognizing, like you said, where those beliefs come from and that we can change. And being the person as a coach, you and I, to show people what's possible in their life. That's magic in itself. And that's what we're here to help people see is sometimes what they can't see about themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you often say that real connection starts where pretense ends. How can women tell when they're being their authentic version versus performing for approval in relationships?
This is a really good question. And it's funny because so many people know that they're performing, right? They know, yeah, I've always done this. This is how I got approval at home, growing up. A lot of things come from childhood, not all of them. But what we want to do is go, when am I choosing? And when am I letting something external choose for me? So, one of the ways you can notice is when you say, oh, I should do this, or I should wear that, or I should go here, shoulds come from the outside. They're not yours. They're somebody else's influence on you. Somebody said you should dress like this. Somebody said you should do that or go to here or take this diet or whatever it was. Because when something is true for us, we don't say, I should do this. Like if you were, let's say you were at your job and they said your lunch hour is from noon to 1 and it gets to be 12 and you go, oh, I should go to lunch. Why? Because somebody else told you that's when you eat. Now, if you didn't have a lunch hour set, maybe you were just sitting at home and you just ate when you were hungry, you wouldn't say, I should go eat now. You'd say, I'm going to grab some food because it's yours. You're choosing it. It's in alignment with where your body is at that point, not because it was on somebody else's schedule. So it's one of the best ways to notice. You just start making should this red flag that flies up every time you hear it coming out of your mouth. Oh, that's not mine. What's my truth in this moment? Now, obviously, there's things we agree to, like a work environment. Hey, that's what we agreed to, so that's fine. They do define what my lunch hour is, but I know that that's what that is. I'm not blindly going, yes, that must be when I like to eat, because we can get in those patterns. It's so funny. I watch this at the holidays, which is coming up. And you sit there and you're with your family, and they all have totally different lifestyles. And yet somebody decides when you should have lunch. Maybe they always have it at noon, and they're attached to that. It's got to be noon. And you're like, we just finished breakfast. Yeah, but we should have lunch. It's noon. It's a should. Nobody's ready for lunch at that point. They're attached to, we should also have 3 meals today. Maybe we had enough at breakfast, we can skip lunch. No, we should have this. Where did that come from? Where did 3 meals a day come from? Right? Not from inside of people. Somebody came up. Where did a 40-hour work week come from? Unions. Up until then, you work night to dusk or dawn to dusk every day except Sunday. And they said, this is killing people. We have to have something. But they arbitrarily made up 40 hours a week. It's not a magic number. I had a friend of mine started a business. He said, I'm working full time. And so I've just hired somebody. I said, great. He goes, and I realized full time for me is 20 hours a week. I'm like, awesome. You redefined it for you. Not because he runs his own business. He doesn't have to do 40 hours a week. So he's like, that's as much as I want to work and I can afford to hire somebody. So I'm going to. Fantastic. Why? Because he loved to travel. He's a musician. He's like, I have so many other things I want to do. And that supports my lifestyle. So I'm good with it. So there's all kinds of cultural, professional, all these different shoulds that we want to get aware of so we can go, I'm just performing. That's not me. Doesn't mean you have to revolt against it, but it's recognizing the difference between the shoulds and you.
Yeah, and me think about, like you were talking about, when you're a baby or when you're young, again, who assigned that 3 meals a day? You eat breakfast at this time, lunch at this time, dinner at this time, and it didn't matter if you were hungry or not. You came to the table at the time that you were expected to be there. And then you also didn't necessarily have choice at what you ate. So in my house, it was, if you don't like what's in front of you, you don't eat at all. But you're going to sit there until everyone else is done eating. If you don't want to eat, fine. But don't come to me later that you're hungry or you're this. And so you learn these protective mechanisms that say, even if I don't like it, and even if I'm not hungry, I better eat now, because if I don't get another chance until the next designated meal. And those societal restrictions that we inherit, that's what leads to eating disorders. It just causes so many things. And when you finally are an adult and you've got your own place and you're so ingrained in that eating at a specific time, but you're like, I'm just really not hungry. I'm okay if I skip a meal, or I can choose to eat this. And again, too, that goes back to like when my kids were young and I was making so much money and had a car payment and a house payment and 2 kids that were very active. And so you eat a specific way because that's how you can afford to eat. You do the best you can to provide nutrition. But then when I'm at this next season of my life, and it's just me living alone for the first time in my life. I was like, "I can eat steak for breakfast? I can do that. I can make this choice," and my husband and I will periodically laugh over different choices of things, and he's like, "Well, if you want that right now, why don't you have that right now? You don't have to say, 'Oh, well, that's dessert, and that's gonna have to wait until after I have eaten my protein and my vegetables and whatever.'" Well, who says? Like, you're an adult. If that's what you're craving, if that's what brings you joy, then have that. And so it's just learning to give ourselves permission to do things differently.
Yeah. And that's the key is you're taking charge of your life. It's funny because if you think about how pervasive this is, like if you go in a fast food restaurant these days, the menu is like the value menu or whatever they call it, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I went into one of these places and I didn't want all that. So I was like, "Can I just get a hamburger?" It took 3 different people to figure out how to enter just it's not even on the menu anymore. I'm like, "Can I even buy just something else?" Because 'Cause they're so not used to people choosing. They just go, "Oh, whatever they put on the menu is what I must want." And so they just hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I was like, "Literally, you don't know how to ring up a hamburger? Like, this is ridiculous." They they hadn't done it for so long, they had to find the manager for somebody that knew how to do that because it was like this whole because the system was literally built around you not asking for specifics. You just letting them tell you what you should eat,
Mhm.
and we just go along. "Okay, well, I normally don't eat fries, but I guess I have to." "No, you don't, just because that's what they put up there." So again, it's taking ownership of that. And to your point, Leanne, like, who says what you can eat when? Great example. We eat every day. My brother, one time, he was probably 40, and he comes up to me, he goes, "I had ice cream for breakfast." And I said, "You can do that. You're an adult." And he was just like, "Yeah, I can actually choose what I'm going to eat when I'm going to eat it." What a miracle. But again, we've given up that authority. We've given up the permission, waiting for somebody else to tell us what we have permission to do. Instead of going, "Wait, it's my life. I appreciate your suggestions, but that doesn't mean I have to adopt them because they may not help me in blooming. They might help me in avoiding conflict." Conflict? Oh no. It doesn't matter. I know what I need to bloom. That's the gift I'm here to bring the world. And we just keep focused on that. And that takes way more bravery than just going along to get along.
Absolutely. Ken, where can people find you? I want to make sure that I include the best contact information for you. If you want to again mention the quiz that's going to be available for people, that way we get out there and we share this information so people know
Yeah.
they can reach you.
Yeah. So the best way to find out more about the blooming effect, the book is at thebloomingeffect.com. And the quiz is conveniently located at quiz.thebloomingeffect.com. So you just put that into your browser, it'll take you to a page, and you just start doing your quiz.
Great. I will make sure to include all of that in the show notes. Ken, this has been such a refreshing and eye opening conversation. As I mentioned earlier, I wish I had someone 8 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago talk to me about the importance of taking care of myself. Talk to me about the importance of showing up as yourself, of having a voice, of not comparing yourself. I mean, all the things that we have discussed in this conversation today are so important. And so I'm glad that we were able to have time to sit down and have this conversation, that we get to have this wonderful platform of a podcast so that we can share it with people and just make it somewhere that people can sit with it, listen to it, rewind it, replay it, find what resonates with them and take that information going forward. I love how you make love feel less like a game to win and more like a garden to grow. I'm very much somebody that loves to spend all my time out in my garden, hands in the dirt, talking to my flowers. I talk to my flowers before I walk out the door in the morning, I have this beautiful table full of flowers, or plants, I should say. And, it's such a habit just to say, "Good morning, plants," and open the blinds and make sure they get the sunlight that they're going to need. Make sure I know I have watered them and given them the love that they deserve. And, even if that means reaching down and rubbing a leaf or two and just acknowledging that I I love that they're there. I love the oxygen that they're providing in my space. And so these are all such valuable things that you have shared with people today.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
our
I appreciate
audience, if you're listening right now and you're curious to know what stage you're blooming in, whether you're still a thorny green plant finding your confidence, a budding rose just starting to open, or a fully blooming rose ready for lasting love, make sure you go out and check out Ken's quiz. It will help you answer those questions. It only takes a few minutes. You'll discover where you are on your blooming journey and what to focus on next to attract a love that lasts. Ken, thank you so much for joining us, for helping women everywhere. And remember that when you bloom first, love follows. Thank you again, Ken. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Leanne. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here.